You know that button you use? You know, to start all your combos and gain access to a lot of moves on the moves list? Wouldn't it be a great idea if I just played the game without it? You said no. Welcome to the Kiwami 2 No Light Attack Run. Now the rules for this are as follows. 1. I can never use a light attack to damage an enemy in any way, shape, or form. I don't even attempt to cheese this rule either, like, you know, whiff the first hit of a light attack combo purposely and then go into it. I feel like that's cheating a little bit, so I just hard cut off none of that. 2. No weapons. It's just gonna turn into me just washing everybody with a crowbar, and that wouldn't be as fun. There is an instance in chapter 13 where you're forced to use a grenade in order to progress the game, but that's the only exception to this rule. 3. No muscle soda. None of that overpowered sugary foolishness this time. We not doing it. I'm gonna be playing this on hard difficulty this time. And yeah, that's it. See how the run goes. After 3 or 4 tutorial fights, my first real challenge is Daigo's Goons. Since I had access to nothing at this point in the game, my only hope was to become a grappler, sprinkle in some charge attacks, and the fight was over pretty quick. Next would be Daigo, and he got his shit kicked in for a smooth 5 minutes. I was trying to do some quick steps, trying some grabs, but then I was like, nah. Instead, I turned into Okada and delivered the most graceful drop kicks of all time to this man. He had no answer for the New Japan tactics and got slumped. Since I won the IWGP belt from Daigo, Peacock Man thought it'd be a good idea to challenge me. He got drop kicked to death soon after. Running around, throws and drop kicks are looking like the only options until I get some more XP. Though it's slow and I take way more damage than I like to, it's all I got. My first real big issue occurred with this mini boss here who would dodge every charge attack and grab attempt just to ruin my day. The only way around this I found was to use evasion strikes, which gave me an attack out of a quick step. Not only is this move fast, but it's spammable. And you know me, big cheese type of guy over here. Once it was time to face Ryuji, and once I got the hang of evasion strike, it was a GG. You see, if you do evasion strike fast enough with a certain rhythm, you basically get an infinite. This infinite slash loop I'm doing here isn't something I came up with, but rather as a strat I've seen used in the no damage community. I should also probably mention that I probably won't ever pull this off again, since I believe there's a certain setup that involves a rush combo to get this working on most other bosses. And I can't use square, so you know how that go. Anyway, Ryuji got looped to death by the Diet Tiger drop, the end. The only notable thing that happens in this chapter is the gambling hall fight, which was a little bit of an issue due to all the weapons I could accidentally pick up while trying to grab enemies, and not to mention my options are still boo-boo. By this point I'm just using evasion strikes and grabs while I can, because waiting for charge strikes at this point didn't really seem that worth it to me. Thanks to Komaki, I finally get access to extreme heat mode, which should give me more options in battle outside of my Guilty Gear Strive hit throw mix-ups I got going on. Only one problem though, you know. Just one small problem. I'm broke as shit. I ain't got no XP, so now I gotta do these Coliseum fights. Sad as hell. I take the first 2 opponents on a joyride around the cage, and then it's time for Majima. He must have had Eric Spoelstra himself hit him with an excellent game plan, because he proceeded to escape any sort of invasion loop I threw at him. But you see, what they didn't know was that I keep that parry on me. Though I couldn't put him in an infinite, I could still get some damage here and there as he attempted to kick me, because these kicks can be parried. After using the parry and getting in 2 or 3 hits here or there, his second phase starts and this man activates Kaioken. Not only that, but he never throws a clear punch or kick ever again, which is bad for me because now I can't parry anything consistently. Anyway, the strat here is simple. Evasion strike, heal, hope for better days. There really isn't much I can do here with my lack of XP and stats, so this was the best idea I had. It was a high risk, low reward method, which is pretty doo-doo, but it got me through the fight. This chapter isn't too hard for the most part. I do my Diet Tiger drops, my throws, heat actions, everything is cool. Until I run into this actual ass clown. You face him 4 times, with each phase getting progressively harder. His first 3 phases aren't that bad, and really I used the strat I've been using the whole time up until this point. His 4th phase is where I just hit a wall. I died to this unhinged man 4 times. He has blades coming out of his boots that guarantee a knockdown on hit, spams an unbreakable grab, and in turns makes your parry useless because there's a high chance he'll just grab you if you're too close to him. You also can't grab him because he'll break out of it automatically after taking a certain amount of damage. Awesome. So I said, nah, I need better upgrades, and then proceeded to reload a save and go on an extreme bolt. I used all the money I had at the time to spend 300k on Pepto-Bismol and fast food just to get more XP for upgrades. After this, I bought Komaki Breakfall Recovery, Double Quick Step, and spend the rest on upgrading my base stats. So I came and fought all the way back through all these enemies in his 3 previous phases just to get back to my original point, and now my plan was to abuse extreme heat mode and his heat actions. Since you stumble less in this mode, I just rushed forward, got a few hits in, a heat action if possible, then healed as I needed. Eventually this high risk, medium reward strat worked and he got packed up. This is probably because I haven't fought the mysterious men somewhat normally since I first played this game. But these motherfuckers got hands. I mean, they heavy-handed and they got combos. They really been in the lab. Started out just getting my free grabs because it seems like pretty much every boss is throw resistant after a certain point in the fight nowadays. After this, I try to get a feel for what moves I should be focusing on, and to no surprise, I use evasion strikes for the rest of the fight. Thanks to them throwing normal punches and kicks, I got a chance to consistently use my parry as well, which helped end the fight a lot less painfully. Hiroshi gotta be the easiest boss fight I played since the first Ryuji battle. This man was free. The first phase and second phase pretty much went per usual. Evasion strikes, pop extreme heat, heat action, repeat. His third phase is when he grabs 2 random pipes and starts to think he's an anime swordsman or something. If anything, he got easier thanks to the pole attacks being slower than his punch attacks. The fight ends with Kiryu gently wiping a piece of lint off of Hiroshi's face. After this, it's the fine Daigo section, and honestly by this point, most group fights just aren't an issue anymore. Around this point, I had copped the quick step and lunge upgrades, which made escaping out of danger a much smoother process. I found myself using little to no throws here, as I didn't want to pick up any of the 13,000 weapons laying on the ground. Channeling my dark side and just really tapping into that inner FGC grappler force, I get past all of the waves of enemies by primarily using grabs. All this just to finally reach Shindo, who's a walking L. This man is garbage. His sword attacks weren't much of a problem. Even range wise, he wasn't particularly fast with his sword swings. Strat wise, I just stuck to my guns and used a combination of throws early on, extreme heat mode later, and the almighty diet tiger drop. He had 4 phases, but it really didn't seem like he increased in difficulty much like the man in black did. The lunge attack he gains in his 4th phase is a little inconvenient, but this is nothing too crazy. All you do in this chapter is fight Satoshi and friends. None of them even got enough health to be considered a mini boss. They just suck. Next. The big fight of this chapter stars the Jingwong Mafia, and it's a group fight where everyone has a knife. Oh man, my PTSD from Kiwami 1 isn't enjoying this. To make matters even worse, they don't just slash at you with the knives, no, of course not. No, they beam them at you, they really chuck this shit at you. Mix in the fact that I can't really grab anyone due to all the weapons around, and now I'm just enjoying life to the fullest. All I could do here was spam quick steps and try to power through all the knife damage with some quick strikes. This chapter almost killed the run. Seriously, this shit was a nightmare. There's a certain section of Osaka Castle that has the option for you to man a minigun to take out the enemies with all the shotguns and whatnot. Since I prohibited myself from being able to use weapons, I couldn't use the minigun. The issue now is that there's like 7 enemies with guns sniping me from multiple places that you can only get to by climbing a ladder. The thing is, they usually shoot you before you can get to the top of any platform using a ladder. I tried popping extreme heat mode here, but I still ended up stumbling every time I'm shot. All I could do here was dodge, climb, and just hope no one shoots me. I'm not sure how long this part took off the top of my head, but just know it was the most amount of pain I experienced up until this point in the run. There was no workaround for this that I could do in the moment. There's bullet resistant gear, but you need to actually block in order to activate its bullet resistant abilities. There's a skill that makes it so you never stumble at all in extreme heat mode, but I didn't complete the sub story for it at the time. So essentially, This part of the game solely relied on RNG and patience. I just had to keep climbing the ladder and hoping no enemies shot me before I got to the top. Or rather, they would shoot me and I would ragdoll fall on top of the platform to get to them. Eventually, I would get lucky and get to the top of the platform after who knows how long, start knocking off some of the enemies just to be hit by one of their melee attacks, which knocks you off the platform. I hated it here, so I had to repeat the process again to reach the last couple of enemies, which took a lot less time because I knocked a good amount of them off the platform before getting knocked off myself. Once I finally get all of them on ground level, I eliminate them quick. The mini boss who's been chasing me around this whole time gets packed up along with his goons, and yeah, 2 more spawn in. And let me just tell you, by this point when I saw them spawn in, I ain't even want to play the game no more. I just wanted to close out. I just want to take a nap, bro. So I repeat the process for a 3rd time and get rid of the last 2. All this pain and suffering in one room just to finally get to the boss. So after that traumatic experience, the tigers arrive, and it went from the worst of times to the best of times because the tigers were mad easy. I was more so concerned about them than anything else in the castle, but they didn't have any fast attacks or response to evasion strikes. I think I might have only gotten hit once or twice throughout this whole fight as well, so you absolutely love to see it. Knowing what's to come in the final chapter, I go ahead and cop 3 heat actions that could potentially make larger group battles less of a pain. Now you can only get these 3 heat actions through a sub-story where you fight a musty man in boxers in a tank top in an abandoned building. Don't ask questions. Anyway, the upgrades make an impact quick, as fighting through the mafia this chapter goes as smooth as it possibly could. There is one part where there's a guy throwing grenades, and the only way to beat him is to throw one back. I tried throwing an enemy at him, but then I got stopped by an invisible wall. So in this instance, the game forced me to use a weapon to progress the game. Following this is the man in black. Yay. But with my quick step upgrade maxed, avoiding him isn't an issue anymore. I couldn't pull off an extreme heat action like usual for some reason, so I just went for the good old evasion strike method to pack him up. This chapter ends with a gun boss, and I sure do hope there isn't any more gun bosses in this game. The fight goes by quick as I'm able just to do the diet tiger drop loop. This is the first time I've really done it on a boss since the very first Ryuji fight, so once again, you love to see it. This chapter consisted of 3 group fights, all with their own mini bosses, and none of them were really all that different in terms of how I approached them or the enemies involved. So, next. Nothing happens. Nah, for real, literally nothing happens. There's no fights in this chapter. This is supposed to be the time in the game where you have like literally an ample amount of free time. You're supposed to do sub-stories and whatnot, but I instead chose to run around the town like a jackass until I got a call from Dante to progress the story. The last chapter of the game. First thing first, I go up against multiple waves of the Jingwong Mafia, and for 90% of it, I just use throws as if I was playing Yakuza 6. The heat actions I copped back in chapter 13 come in handy as well, as they make these fights go by so quick, so efficiently. After this, the man in black returns for the 88th time and somehow is even stronger. This motherfucker been training with Goku or something. Anyway, the fight didn't turn out too bad compared to his other ones. The good old bread and butter combos consisting of nothing but evasion strikes was good enough. Following this, it's now time for Ryuji a 2nd time. And here was the first time I didn't have a clear strat. In fact, I had to use all of my moves in tandem as I saw fit. The usual evasion strikes didn't really put him into a stun animation. He didn't always stand still long enough for a charge attack to land, and I couldn't rely on grabs. The only thing I could really rely on was extreme heat mode, as I would stumble less, of course, and it allowed me to be a lot more aggressive in my offensive approach. But overall, I pretty much had to use everything but parries to get past this man. Oh wow, it's another gun boss. Let's go. Extreme heat mode, run up, heat action, Tirada pack. All that's left are the random scrubs, and they get thrown to death. With that irrelevant foolishness aside, now it's time to fight Ryuji for the 3rd and final time. And this fight is Okay, before he goes into sparking like his Dragon Ball fighters, he gets schmixerized by the no mix-up. Afterwards, it turns into a long battle of constantly dodging and getting a hit in every once in a while. The only thing new here is that I could finally use my parry consistently for once. I got off 1 or 2 heat actions early, but I couldn't really land them ever again. Charge attacks and grabs were also slowly went out the window the longer the fight dragged on, so this turned into a long battle of cat and mouse. Anyway, this fight takes a while, but Ryuji eventually goes down and the run is over.